You can sing, but you don't play an instrument. So is that enough to get you hired on a cruise ship? You might have spent years working on your voice and wanting to be a singer. Maybe you already are one. Maybe you can hold a room, maybe you can play hundreds of songs, but you can't really play piano or guitar and you don't really have any interest in doing so. And somewhere along the way you thought about cruise ships, but then realized that you might need to play an instrument, otherwise you'd never get hired. So if right now you're thinking that cruise ships might not be an option for you, let's talk about it in this video, because I've sat in the rooms with agents who are making these kind of decisions on who to hire, and it's not as easy as you think. It's not always a yes or a no, because it depends entirely on which role you're applying for. Some positions require you to carry the whole show alone, and a lot of the time, if you're on your own, these kind of positions require you to play piano or guitar. And some other roles are built around being with other musicians or being with dancers, like in a production cast. And if that's the case, being a singer is exactly what's needed and you don't need to play an instrument. So if you're a singer wondering if this door about cruise ships is actually closed right in front of you, stick around, because in this video we're going to discuss what options you actually have as a singer if you don't play any instrument. We're going to be talking about what path you should be applying for on cruise ships, but also if you are wanting to work on land as a singer. So you might be wondering if you can actually get hired if you are a singer and if you don't play an instrument. And the answer to this is yes. On cruise ships, if you're applying as part of the production cast or as part of a party band, for example, being a singer is a real valid route. And Royal Caribbean's own listings, for example, states that being part of a party band, Latin band, is completely possible, and that there are pure vocalist positions available for these positions. A lot of the time you might have heard about the solo or duo work where you need to be with a musician. If you're working as a solo, being with backing tracks is not going to really work out. Maybe it will on some cruise lines, but it's not the norm, because it will a lot of the time look a little bit like karaoke, and cruise lines love to get musicians and singers to do as much as they can. So if you can sing and play, you're way more likely to be hired. And if they hire a solo performer, a lot of the time they will want this performer to be able to play an instrument. So what is it that agents and cruise lines actually expect from a vocalist-only applicant? The first thing is that you really understand this well, that you know what you're applying for. So many times agents, as I worked as part of an agency, I know this for a fact. A lot of the time, there are lots of musicians or performers who send their applications and have no idea what they're applying for. And so a lot of the time, they won't have the right material, but they won't really look professional to the agency neither, because they don't know about this world, they don't know what they're applying for, and that makes it really difficult for the agency to actually think through, hey, where can I put this person? That puts a lot of mental load on the agent. Whereas when a singer comes and say, hey, I know I can be part of a party band, do you have any musicians you can pair me up with so that we can work as a party band, and that you show that you have the right show reel, the right repertoire, that makes it really much easier for the agent, and that's a lot of the time when they're going to respond to you much faster. So knowing exactly what you're applying for, whether it's being part of a party band, which is usually a position where you're gonna need to be able to sing for hours at a time, where you will need a big repertoire of party hits from the 60s up to nowadays, and to have videos of you playing versatile songs and interacting with the audience. That's pretty much what would be required for you if you wanted to be a vocalist as part of a band. Then if you're applying as a vocalist to be part of the production cast, of course you need to know that you will have to audition. And so the good question when you come across an agency will be, okay, what's the process to audition? And you don't specifically have so much promo material to send them, apart from a promo reel and your experience in a summary or CV, if you have any. The promo reel will be really important if you want to show that you're a music theater singer and that you want to be part of the production cast. But obviously the audition process is very different when you're applying to be a singer as part of the cast compared to when you're applying to be as part of a duo, trio, or band. And so it's really important that you know first what you want to apply for, and where you're heading in terms of position, so that when you email the agent, they know about where to place you and they don't have to do this thinking process for you. If you're watching this right now and you're thinking, hey, I have no idea what would be best for me, I would need to know a little bit more about the conditions, about what it's like to be working on the ship, or about where my strengths are as a vocalist and where I could potentially work on the ship, feel free to let me know down below. There's an email address where you can ask me your questions and I'll point you in the right directions. And if you're ready, you can also book a 45 minutes consultation with me so that we can figure out what is the best path for you, and so you don't have to go through the months of trial and error trying to decide on your own what path would suit you best. Feel free to check these out in the description. It's all in there. Now, the third thing that agents and cruise lines actually expect from you when you're applying for a vocalist role, and all of this, by the way, is quite similar if you're applying on land. Probably on land for vocalists, there are going to be more options, but a lot of the time is going to be you applying to be part of a show cast. So whether it's like a musical or just like a local show, they will want to see what you're able to do in a professional setting. Or if you're applying for being part of a duo, trio, or band, same thing, they'll also want to see your repertoire, etc. So a lot of what I'm saying here actually applies to you if you're a vocalist trying to make it on land and finding opportunities and presenting yourself in the best way so that people can take you seriously. And so the last thing is that you actually have the right promo material. And so this really applies if you're trying to be part of a duo or trio or a band, because your material is essentially going to be your audition. If you're a vocalist trying to be part of the production cast, some material will definitely help, but there's probably going to be an audition process where they will want to see you dancing, acting, or obviously singing. But for the musicians' positions, like being part of bands, a lot of the time there's no audition process, real audition on Zoom or online. A lot of the time they're just going to look at your material and that's going to be essentially your audition. So understanding what are the kind of materials that you need in order to get the position that you want is super important, because again, once you email the agency or the cruise lines, then you have everything, the promo material, and you have the confidence within yourself that it's the right kind of promo material for the position you're applying for. And now, one thing you might be wondering is, does not playing an instrument becomes a real disadvantage for you? And the answer to this is that yes, it is a disadvantage, especially on cruise ships, because when you are able to play an instrument, not only you have different options, so you can be a vocalist, but you can also be a keys player or whatever instrument you play in different environments. So either as a solo, but maybe as a duo or as a band, or maybe even sometimes as musicians as part of the production cast. But it's also about flexibility, like being able to play an instrument will get you to have the options of working on your own, of applying as a solo performer, for example. And in this, you have much more freedom in the kind of contracts you can accept. A lot of the time it's going to be shorter contracts than if you're working in bands or in the production cast. And you're also going to have much more freedom in what you can play in the evening. So choosing your songs, choosing how you want to perform your songs. And this is why I personally think that the solo performer path, where you are singing and playing an instrument that you choose, is much better for the life you're going to have on the ship, but also for the application process and the freedom you're going to experience. And again, everything I'm saying here applies on land. There are so many singers everywhere, but for example, piano vocalist is not that many. And so if you're able to play an instrument, I would really recommend you doing so. One last thing worth mentioning is that applying to be part of the production cast is quite a competitive process, probably a little bit more than if you're applying to be a solo performer. And so that's also a reason why not being able to play instruments can put you at a real disadvantage. So if you're considering using one instrument to accompany you singing, because I personally think, and this is also backed by agency data and my own personal experience, being able to play an instrument is actually in your favor and actually really helps you in the long term with the pay, the conditions, the privileges you have on the ship, and the flexibility and freedom you can enjoy in the job. If that's something you're curious about, feel free to check the course How to Become a Cruise Ship Musician. There's so much about this world, about how it works, about how it is to live on board, about whether it's actually for you or not, and about how to apply the best way, whether to go directly with cruise lines or with agencies so that you can get the best contract. I've put all my knowledge and a step-by-step process in this course, and if you are interested, the link is down below. Go and have a look and do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. So the key takeaway from this video is that yes, it is possible to be a vocalist and to work on cruise ships and not to have to play an instrument, but it can be a little bit more difficult than if you have the ability to play an instrument, because it's not as flexible as being a solo performer. However, I know lots of singers and I have friends who are working on cruise ships as singers, and that works really well. They enjoy being part of a band or part of the production cast, and they do really well this way. So I just want you to know that there are options if you want to be a singer. Now, if you're a musician wanting to make a good living performing music, whether it's on cruise ships or on land, this is pretty much what I always talk about on this channel. I post twice a week, so feel free to subscribe down below and to hit the notification bell so you can stay updated whenever I post a video. I thank you so much for your time. Feel free to let me know down below what instrument you play and what are your current goals in your music. And I'm excited to see you in the next video. Thank you so much for your time.